It was a night like so many others, in a peaceful seaside resort in Portugal. Laughter, voices, the gentle warmth of summer. But suddenly, a brutal silence falls. A little girl vanishes without a cry, without a sound. In the dark apartment, doors slam, shadows cross paths. Around them, adults frozen, trapped in a strange silence. A heavy, almost suffocating silence that seems to protect a secret too burdensome to bear. Since that night, nearly 20 years have passed. But no one, not a single one among them, has dared to break this wall of silence. Why? What are they trying to hide? Today, I invite you to step into that nightmarish night, to probe the unspoken, and to uncover what no one has ever dared to reveal. On May 3, 2007, in the small seaside resort of Praia da Luz, Portugal, everything seems peaceful. A group of British friends is on a family vacation. Among them are Jerry and Kate McCann, who have come with their 3 children, including Madeleine, who is 3 years old. That evening, the parents decide to have dinner at a restaurant just a few meters from the apartment. The children, meanwhile, stay behind, asleep in their beds. The adults set up a monitoring system. Each parent takes turns checking on the children, but this seemingly reassuring system will prove to be disastrous. Around 10 p.m., Kate McCann returns to the apartment and discovers that Madeleine is missing. No noise, no sign of a struggle, no scream. Childhood has vanished. Within a few hours, the apartment is overrun by neighbors, friends, and then the police. The news spreads at lightning speed. Very quickly, media from around the world seize on the case. Madeleine becomes the face of a global mystery. But from the very first hours, something feels off. The group's behavior, contradictions in the testimonies, strange decisions, and above all, an unsettling silence settles in. The silence of the friends present that night, later nicknamed the Tapas 7. A silence that no one would break, not in 2007, not in 2017, not even today. Why? In British professional circles, especially in the medical field, an accusation of child neglect can ruin careers forever. And this group of friends, the Tapas 7, was not made up of ordinary tourists. They were doctors, researchers, executives. All of them had reputations to protect. So imagine admitting that they left their children alone for several evenings to go out to dinner. It would be like confessing to a form of child endangerment, but also suggesting something more serious, a possible lie, a cover-up, that could destroy everything. And what if their silence wasn't proof of guilt, but rather a protective barrier? A tacit pact, a kind of moral contract. If one of them speaks, everything collapses. It's not just the truth at stake, but their families, their children, their careers, their lives. Many of them returned to a quiet life after the tragedy. Some even had more children, but breaking the silence, becoming the one who betrays the group, means exposing oneself to a media storm, legal proceedings, online attacks, threats, and loneliness. And even their own children could suffer from ITAT school, on social media, in the street. So, many may have thought that staying silent was the lesser evil. But there is also another, darker possibility. What if someone in the group had something on the other, some influence, a secret, a troubled past? Some documents suggest that David Payne, one of the group members, had been reported for concerning behavior. And what if 1 or 2 people in the group knew or suspected something? In that case, the dynamic changes. Silence becomes a form of currency. A single word could reveal everything. One revelation could destroy several lives at once. So instead of turning each other in, they protect one another. This isn't fiction. It's a well-known behavioral pattern. In church scandals, hospitals, the police, whenever a secret is shared among several people, it becomes an invisible force that binds and traps them. And in the McCann case, this silence seems almost too perfect. No leaks, no public contradictions, no doubts expressed. Almost 20 years without any of the Tapas 7 breaking ranks. Is it just a coincidence? Or is it a silence that was constructed, advised, maybe even imposed? In the Madeleine McCann case, one name often comes up behind the scenes, but very rarely in public. David Payne. A member of the group of friends, also a doctor, he was one of the closest to the McCann couple. And yet, at a certain point, he completely disappeared from the radar. No interviews, no testimonies, no media appearances. He faded from the scene as if his presence that night had never existed. And even more troubling, there is no significant mention of him in the McCann couple's public campaigns. No involvement in the active searches, not a word in his name. Yet David Payne is a central figure. He is the last adult, apart from Kate and Jerry, to have seen Madeleine alive that night. And according to an official statement, he was the one sent by Jerry to check on the children in the apartment. And yet, his role is barely mentioned. Police documents, such as the famous Gaspard statement, mention suspicious behavior on his part during a previous trip. Inappropriate gestures, disturbing remarks. But no one, not Jerry, nor Kativa, questioned his presence or their friendship after these revelations. at least not publicly. His silence has become a mystery within the mystery. Why doesn't he speak? Why has he never spoken out, not even to defend himself? Some believe he is following strict legal advice. Others believe he wants to protect himself from a larger scandal. But after nearly 2 decades, this silence is becoming heavy. And in contrast, the attitude of Jerry McCann, his close friend, is also becoming suspicious. Because Jerry, for his part, has done everything to control the public narrative. He hired communication experts, lawyers, advisors, and in this total control, Payne has vanished. This complete silence around David Payne, it just a coincidence? Or is it a deliberate, orchestrated silence to avoid drawing attention to him? Among the elements that puzzled people from the very first days, the behavior of Jerry McCann, Madeleine's father, is one of the most mysterious. From the very first hours after the disappearance, some observers were struck by his demeanor, a calm that was almost chilling, a complete lack of panic, total self-control. Witnesses say that while Kate was breaking down emotionally, Jerry kept a cool head. During interviews, it was often her who pleaded in front of the cameras while he stayed in the background, silent, even distant. He wasn't a father in tears, lost in grief. He was a man in control. Some will say that everyone reacts differently to trauma. That's true, but what is unsettling here is the consistency. Jerry never wavered, always upright, always in control, never giving in to emotional breakdown. He quickly took charge, communicating with the press, hiring image consultants, organizing conferences. He became the face of the Find Madeleine campaign. But behind this composure, some saw something else. A strategy. A need to control the narrative, to keep the story on a very specific track. Journalists noted that interviews were carefully selected, sensitive topics avoided, contradictions swept aside. A striking detail. Very early on, the McCann family hired communication consultants, lawyers, legal experts. The tone changes. It's no longer about searching for a child, but about crisis management. And when questions are raised about the inconsistencies on the night of the disappearance, or about the choices regarding the children's care, Jerry becomes tense, even defensive. No room for doubt, no public self-questioning. Everything is locked down. Some criminal psychology experts say that such behavior does not necessarily indicate guilt, but may reveal knowledge. An innocent parent with no idea what happened often acts with confusion, despair, or even panic. But a parent who knows or suspects that the truth is grim may try to contain it. The question then becomes, did Jerry know from the very beginning that Madeleine would never return? And if so, what exactly was he protecting? His family, his wife, a friend? After observing David Payne's disappearance and Jerry McCann's intriguing behavior, one question keeps coming back. Why has none of the members of the group known as the Tapa 7 ever broken the silence? Why, despite the pressure, the years, the contradictions, has no one lifted the veil? The answer may well lie in what specialists call a pact of silence. An unspoken agreement, an unwritten rule that binds a group to keep a secret, sometimes at any cost. In this context, loyalty does not resemble simple friendship fidelity. It's a much more complex bond, almost invisible. A bond held together by fear, respect, and implicit threat. Imagine a circle where each person holds a piece of uncomfortable truth. A truth that, if revealed, could upend several lives. Shattered careers, destroyed reputations, even criminal charges. In this circle, speaking up doesn't just risk your own downfall, but also brings down others with you. What makes this pact so powerful is that it doesn't necessarily need to be formalized. It can be based on invisible blackmail, not necessarily with words, but with looks, gestures, silences that weigh heavier than open threats. Some social psychology experts compare this to the mechanisms found in institutions rocked by serious scandals. Churches, hospitals, police. Where a revelation would expose serious wrongdoing, groups develop self-protection systems where silence becomes a weapon for survival. In the McCann case, certain clues support this hypothesis. The fact that David Payne, despite implicit accusations, remained in the shadows, protected by a solidarity that sometimes seems blind. The complete absence of any public disagreements among the Tapa 7 members, whereas in any human group, disagreements would eventually surface. The meticulous control exercised by Jerry McCann over communication, as if to ensure that no one spoke outside the official script. The swift recourse to lawyers and communication consultants suggests that, beyond legal defense, it was also about social and psychological control. All of this raises a troubling question. Did this collective silence arise from a shared fear, actual blackmail, an underlying threat, or simply an extreme sense of loyalty, even when that loyalty becomes toxic? It's hard to say for certain, but one thing is clear. This pact of silence, whether voluntary or forced, protects more than it reveals. It protects secrets that could destroy careers, families, and perhaps even the truth about that fateful night. So with every day that passes without a member breaking this silence, another veil is drawn over the truth. A veil woven from fear, loyalty, and an invisible but very real blackmail. After having explored the group's silence and the pact that seems to bind them, it's time to focus on the concrete evidence, what the facts actually reveal, and above all, what they leave in the shadows. On one hand, there are some disturbing elements. For example, the alerts from the sniffer dogs, which reportedly detected the scent of a human body in Madeleine's apartment and in the family's car. These signals are hard to ignore. The partial DNA results found under the apartment floor that match Madeleine. The inconsistencies in the alibis and schedules of the adults present, especially David Payne, whose exact whereabouts remain unclear during the critical hours. The speed with which certain decisions were made, the immediate recourse to lawyers, the strict control of communications, and even the resistance to fully cooperating with the Portuguese police. When these facts are put together, they give the impression of an unfinished puzzle. They do not allow for a conviction, but neither do they dispel the doubt. And then, there is what the facts do not say. They do not say who took Madeleine, nor why, nor even whether she was the victim of an accident, an abduction, or something worse. They do not say why David Payne remained silent for so long, nor why the group, despite being made up of brilliant adults, chose such perfect cohesion around a single, seemingly flawless account. They do not say why the families and close friends never publicly questioned the official versions, despite glaring inconsistencies. The mystery lies not only in what has been revealed, but above all, in what has been hidden, whether intentionally or not. This lack of information fuels speculation and feeds the theory that something more serious, more personal, is happening behind the scenes. Something that no one dares to expose or even mention. At this point, faced with the absence of certainties, the truth seems to be hanging in the balance. And every new piece of information, every detail, becomes a fragile fragment of a picture that no one can yet fully assemble. What is certain is that the facts as they are known tell only part of the story. The rest, the darker part, remains buried in silence. Almost 20 years have passed since that tragic night in May 2007. Yet, despite all the investigations, testimonies, and theories, the truth about Madeleine McCann's disappearance remains elusive. What is most striking is the persistent echo of a silence that refuses to be broken. This silence is that of the loved ones, the witnesses, the people at the heart of the case. Not once has any member of the so-called Tapper 7 chosen to break this invisible wall. No revelation, no publicly expressed doubt, no questioning. It is a silence that weighs heavily, almost tangible, and it fuels more mystery than it provides answers. Why this silence? Is it out of loyalty, out of fear, or to protect secrets too heavy to bear? The weight of ruined careers, broken families, and destroyed lives seems enough to explain this restraint. But the possibility of a darker secret still hangs in the air. A secret that, if ever revealed, would shake all certainties. The media have played their part, sometimes chasing scoops, sometimes respecting the shadows. The authorities investigated but ultimately closed the case due to lack of sufficient evidence. And the public, for its part, continues to wonder, to speculate, to search for meaning where there may be none. Yet, despite the lack of resolution, this case has left a deep mark on the collective memory. It reminds us that behind every publicized tragedy, there are broken human beings, shattered families, and sometimes truths that no one wants to face. So, what remains? The disappearance of Madeleine McCann has become more than just a criminal mystery. It is a human enigma made up of pain, fear, and above all, silence. Is the silence that persists a form of protection or a barrier to justice? How long can the secret hold out against the search for truth? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. As long as this silence remains unbroken, the truth about that night will stay out of reach. Thank you for following this detailed investigation with us. If this story moved you, intrigued you, or shook you, feel free to leave a comment, share this video, and most importantly, subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming investigations. Because every truth deserves to be heard, and every silence, one day, must be broken.